Welcome back to Horror Galaxy. Tonight, I have 4 small-town horror stories for you. Before we begin, make sure you're subscribed, because once you step onto the Horror Galaxy, you don't walk alone. The bell goes off while I am still writing yesterday's call times into the ledger, my pen slipping slightly because the sound makes my chest jump every single time, no matter how long I have been doing this. I look up at the board automatically, already saying the address in my head before the paper prints, because after a year volunteering here, you start to memorize the rhythm of emergencies. The paper slides out, curls and stops. I pull it free and read it once, then again slower, because something about it does not settle in my brain right. It lists a house on Cedar Line Road, a place that burned to its foundation when I was still in high school. No injuries, no fatalities, total loss. I remember watching it glow from the road with my father standing beside me, both of us silent. My mouth goes dry. I check the time printed at the bottom. It says the call came in at 1:12 in the morning. The clock above the door reads 12:48. I tell myself it is a printer glitch. We get those. The system is old. Half of it still runs on equipment older than me. I tear the strip off and pin it to the corkboard anyway, because that is procedure. Even wrong calls get logged. I clear my throat and radio the station chief, my voice sounding steadier than I feel. He answers sleepy and irritated, tells me it is probably a delayed data packet, and to stop overthinking it. I want to believe him. I sit back down, rub my palms on my jeans, and stare at the bell. It hangs there, quiet and innocent, the way it always does between calls. I tell myself the night is long and my brain is tired. The next bell rings exactly 40 minutes later. I do not flinch this time because part of me is already braced. The paper slides out. Different address. Same problem. A farmhouse on Old Quarry Road burned in 1978, long before the dispatch room even existed. I do not need to check the time this time. I already know what it will say. 1:52 in the morning. The clock says 1:31. I stand up so fast my chair scrapes loudly against the floor, the sound echoing too much in the empty building. I press my hands flat against the desk and force myself to breathe slow. I radio the chief again. This time he does not answer. I tell myself he is asleep. I tell myself it is nothing. I pull the old incident binders off the shelf, the ones nobody ever looks at anymore. I flip through them, fingers shaking, until I find Cedar Line Road. The report is exactly how I remember it. Same for Old Quarry Road. Total loss. No follow-up. I feel like I am doing something wrong, just touching these pages, like the building is watching me. I laugh under my breath, because that is stupid. Buildings do not watch. Bells do not predict. Systems do not know the future. The bell rings again at 2:32. This time the address is Maple Crescent. That one did not burn decades ago. That one burned last winter. I was the one who took the call. I remember the woman screaming that her dog was still inside. The dog did not make it. I sit back down slowly, my legs weak. The time printed is 3:03 in the morning. I look at the clock until my eyes hurt. It is 2:14. I stop pinning the slips to the board. Instead, I stack them neatly beside the ledger. I do not know why. It just feels wrong to display them. The radio crackles once, then goes quiet again. I try the chief one more time, then another volunteer. No answers. The building feels too big with only me inside it. Every sound is sharp. Every tick of the clock feels loud enough to scrape against my nerves. I consider calling the non-emergency line, but what would I say? Hello, our bell is telling me the future and I am scared. I would hang up on me too. So I wait. That is my job. I wait for the next bell. It comes at 3:22. The address makes my stomach drop. It is my street, my house. The time printed is 4:08 in the morning. I stare at the paper so long my eyes blur. My first instinct is to laugh. A hard, ugly sound that dies in my throat. My second instinct is to run. I grab my jacket and my keys and then stop, because if this thing is right, if the bell is not lying, then whatever is going to happen will happen whether I am there or not. I sit back down. My hands shake so badly I have to grip the edge of the desk. I think about my wife asleep at home, about the way she always forgets to turn off the porch light, about the old wiring in the basement that I keep meaning to replace. I think about every time I ignored a small warning because it was easier than dealing with it. I feel sick. The bell does not ring again. The minutes crawl. 3:40, 3:50, 4:01. I am sweating now, my shirt sticking to my back. I stare at the clock like I can will it to stop. 4:08 comes and goes. Nothing happens. I let out a breath that feels like it has been trapped in my chest for hours. I laugh again, softer this time. Of course, nothing happens. Of course, it was wrong. At 4:15, my phone rings. It is my neighbor. He is yelling before I can say hello. There is smoke coming from my garage. I am already on my feet, already grabbing the radio. The bell does not ring. I call it in myself, my voice shaking as I give my own address. The trucks roll. By the time we get there, the garage is a blackened shell. The house is untouched. An electrical fault, they say. Old wiring, contained early. I should have felt relieved. Instead, all I can think about is the time, 4:08. That is when the fire started. Not when it was noticed. Not when it was reported. When it started. I do not sleep after that. I go back to the station after sunrise and lay all the slips out on the desk. I check every single one. Every fire listed happened at the exact time printed, whether it was reported then or not. Even the old ones. I cross-reference them with insurance records, with old newspaper clippings. The times match events nobody could have known in advance. Fires that smoldered unseen for hours before bursting into flame. Electrical shorts. Slow burns, all of it. I call the chief again. He finally answers. I tell him everything. There is a long silence on the other end. Then he tells me very quietly that this happened before. Back in 1980, the year the system was installed. For 3 nights, the bell rang ahead of time. For 3 nights, the dispatcher on duty logged the calls and went home shaken. On the 4th night, the bell rang with his address. He did not make it out. I feel cold all over. I ask why nobody told me. He says they thought it was a coincidence. He says the system was inspected, modified, blessed by a priest at one point. Then it stopped, until now. I ask him what happened to the dispatcher. He says his house fire was ruled accidental. Faulty wiring. I hang up. I sit there for a long time. The bell is silent. I think about quitting. I think about ripping the system out of the wall. But I also think about the people who might still be saved if I listen. That night I am back at the desk. I do not tell my wife where I am going. I cannot explain it. The bell rings at 12:42. The address is a warehouse outside town, abandoned, scheduled for demolition. The time printed is 1:37. I radio it in anyway. The trucks roll their eyes but go. They find a fire starting behind a false wall, contained before it spreads to the surrounding brush. The next bell saves a family asleep in a trailer with a faulty heater. The next prevents a forest fire during a dry spell. I stop questioning it. I log every call. I act early. People start calling it luck. On the 7th night, the bell rings with the station's address. The time printed is 2:04. I look around the room. I think about the old wiring, about the way the lights flicker sometimes. I do not panic. I pull the main breaker. The lights die. The building goes quiet. Nothing burns. The bell never rings again after that. We replace the system a month later. New equipment, new software. The old bell is taken down and put into storage. Sometimes when I am alone in the station, I swear I can hear it faint and distant, like metal settling. I do not volunteer for night dispatch anymore. I rewired my house. I sleep better now. But I still log every call the moment it comes in. and I still believe deep down that the bell was not trying to hurt anyone. It was just telling the truth early, whether we were ready to hear it or not. I am flipping the wooden sign on the front door from open to closed when I hear the soft scrape of pen on paper behind me. It is so ordinary a sound that my body reacts before my mind does. I say hello out of habit, expecting to see a late visitor or one of the volunteers who forgets the time. My voice echoes back at me from the empty entry hall. The museum is closed. I lock the door myself. The sound keeps going, steady and patient, coming from the reception desk where the visitor logbook sits open every night. I walk back toward it, my shoes sounding too loud on the floor. The book is open to a fresh page. The pen lies across the line for signatures, rocking slightly as if it has just been set down. My first thought is that I am more tired than I realized. I have been doing evening shifts for months now, and the quiet plays tricks. I pick up the pen. It is warm, like it has been held. I feel a small, sharp jolt of unease, the kind that makes you laugh at yourself a second later. I set the pen straight and close the book. This is how it starts, and I am telling you now because you asked me once why I left Bantry so suddenly. I told you work dried up. That was easier. I make my usual round. I check the gallery doors, the storage room, the back office. Everything is as it should be. When I return to the desk, the logbook is open again. There is a signature on the first line. The letters are uneven, shaky, like someone writing with a stiff hand. The name is not familiar. I tell myself someone must have slipped in while I was locking up and decided to be clever. It annoys me more than it scares me. I draw a firm line through the name, write closed across the top of the page, and shut the book harder than I need to. The next night, it happens again. This time there are 3 names, all written in the same unsteady script, all dated correctly for that day. I recognize one of the surnames. It belongs to a local man who died years ago, long before the museum reopened after renovations. I feel my stomach tighten, but I am still thinking practically. Old museums collect old stories. People like to joke. I tear out the page and put it in the bin, pressing it down beneath old brochures and coffee cups. On the 3rd night, the page is back. It is the same page. I know because there is a small tear in the corner where I ripped it free. The names are there again, written over faint impressions where the paper had been torn. I stand there for a long time, listening to the buildings settle around me. I tell myself there must be a rational explanation. Damp air, old paper, someone with access to the place. But none of those explanations account for the way my hands start shaking when I see the date. It is tomorrow. I close the book and lock it in the drawer beneath the desk. I sit with my back to it for the rest of the shift, reading the same paragraph of the same book over and over, listening for sounds that never quite come. When closing time arrives, I leave without looking back. The following evening, the drawer is open when I arrive. The logbook is on the desk, open to a new page. There are more names now. The same hand, the same slant. The dates march forward, 1 per line, neat in their wrongness. Tomorrow, the day after, and then the date that makes my breath catch painfully in my chest. My name is written there, my full name, spelled correctly, dated for the next night. I laugh. I actually laugh out loud, sharp and too loud in the empty space. I tell myself this is stress, that my mind is filling in gaps. I flip back through the book, looking for proof that I am misreading something. Every past entry is normal. Families, tourists, school groups, my handwriting from earlier shifts. Nothing out of place except these new pages, which feel heavier somehow, as if the paper itself resists being touched. I take the book into the office and call the museum director. She answers on the 3rd ring, sleepy and irritated. I explain, stumbling over my words. She listens, then sighs and tells me to stop scaring myself. Old buildings do strange things, she says. She promises to look at it in the morning. I hang up feeling foolish and exposed. That night, I dream of writing. My hand moves across endless pages, my wrist aching, my fingers numb. I cannot stop. In the morning, the director calls back. Her voice is tight. She says the page with my name on it is gone. The book looks normal. She asks if I have been taking anything from the archives home with me. I say no. She pauses, then tells me to take the night off. I agree too quickly. I do not sleep. I keep seeing my name in that shaking script. I keep thinking about the date beside it, creeping closer. I go in the next night anyway. The book is open when I arrive. The page is waiting. My name is still there, patient as a threat. Below it, there is a space, as if another name is meant to be added after mine. The pen lies beside the book, angled toward me. I do not touch it. I back away, my heart pounding so hard it makes me dizzy. I spend the night watching the desk from the far end of the room. Nothing moves. No sound breaks the silence. When morning comes, the page is unchanged. The next evening, my name is the last on the page. The date is today. I know then what this is asking of me. The log is not predicting. It is recording. It fills itself because it has to. Because the act of being written down matters more than who does the writing. I think about the names I recognized, the dead man, the others whose families still live in town. I think about how museums are places where we decide what gets remembered. I pick up the pen. It is heavier than it should be. My hand shakes as I hold it above the page. I feel watched, not by something hiding in the shadows, but by the quiet weight of expectation. I write my name again, beneath the one already there. The letters come out wrong, stiff and uneven. When I finish, the pen slips from my fingers and clatters onto the desk. Nothing happens. I stand there for a long time, waiting for something terrible, something final. But the room remains the same. Eventually, my breathing slows. I feel foolish again, angry at myself for giving in. I tear out the page and rip it into pieces. I scatter them into different bins around the building. I lock the book away, then sit until morning, daring it to defy me again. It does not. The book stays blank. The nights pass quietly. I convince myself it is over. 2 weeks later, I attend a small funeral for a woman I barely knew, a distant acquaintance of a friend. At the reception afterward, I glance at the guest book out of idle curiosity. My stomach drops. The handwriting is familiar, shaky. Univen. The woman's name is written there, dated the day before she died. I leave Bantry the next morning. I do not work in museums anymore. I avoid places that keep records, that try to fix people in ink and paper. Sometimes, though, I still dream of writing. And sometimes when I wake, my hand aches as if I have been holding a pen all night. I'm tearing the last strip from the ticket roll when the printer rattles back to life on its own, spitting out a fresh stub with a route name I haven't seen in years, and I actually laugh at first because it feels like the machine is mocking me. I grab the ticket, see the old ferry name printed clean as day, and say out loud to the empty booth, "That line's been shut down since the accident." My voice sounds thin even to me. I check the clock on the wall, tell myself it's late and I'm tired, and slide the ticket into the drawer without logging it, because there's nobody here to sell it to anyway. Then I hear footsteps on the wooden ramp. They're slow, careful, like whoever it is doesn't want to rush. I lean forward and peer through the glass. A woman stands there with a canvas bag over her shoulder, hair pulled back, eyes fixed on the booth. She doesn't look lost. She looks like she knows exactly where she's going. "I need one for the crossing," she says. My mouth opens before my brain catches up. That ferry doesn't run. She tilts her head, confused but polite. It's on the board. I glance behind me. The departure board is lit. The old route glowing faintly beneath newer listings, like it's always been there. I swear it wasn't earlier. I tell her it must be a mistake, that the line was shut down after an accident years ago, that there is no ferry. She waits, patient. I have to be on it. Something in her certainty makes my stomach tighten. Against every rule I know, I pull the ticket from the drawer and slide it through the slot. She takes it, thanks me, and walks toward the dock without another word. I sit there for a full minute, heart thudding, before standing and following her outside. More people are coming now. A man in a work jacket. An older couple holding hands, a teenager with headphones dangling around his neck. None of them speak to each other. They just line up at the edge of the dock, all facing the water. The ferry horn never sounds. The boat never appears. And yet, one by one, they step forward like they can see something I can't. Shoes hitting planks that shouldn't exist, bodies moving out over open water. I shout for them to stop. My voice doesn't reach them. The woman with the canvas bag looks back once, meets my eyes, and then keeps walking until she's gone. I run to the edge and stare at the dark surface below. Nothing. No wake. No lights. No boat. Just empty water swallowing people whole without a sound. I stagger back, chest burning, and fumble for the radio. The harbor office doesn't answer. I call security, then the Coast Guard, words tumbling out wrong, too fast. They promise to send someone. When the first patrol arrives, the dock is empty. No passengers. No ferry. Just me shaking so hard I can't keep my hands still. They pull the footage. On the screen, I watch myself sell tickets to an empty booth. I watch people line up where nothing stands. I watch them disappear into thin air. The officers' exchange looks I don't like. They shut the booth down for the night. They walk me home. I don't sleep. The next evening I'm back, because bills don't care about fear. I tell myself it was exhaustion, a stress hallucination, anything. The ticket printer is quiet. The board looks normal. I breathe. At 9, it starts again. Tickets print. People arrive. This time I don't sell anything. I lock the window, shout, beg. They don't react. They board nothing. They vanish. I count them. 7 the first night. 9 the second. I start researching the accident. Years ago, a ferry ran aground during a storm. Officially, everyone was rescued. Unofficially, there were rumors, missing names. Families who never got answers. On the 4th night, the printer spits out a ticket with my name on it. I stare at it until my vision blurs. The route. The time. Tonight. I understand then. The ferry isn't taking people somewhere. It's collecting debts. When the line forms, I step out of the booth. My legs feel like they don't belong to me. I walk to the edge and wait. The water ripples, not from a boat, but from pressure, like something massive just beneath the surface. I think of all the nights I sold tickets without question, all the times I ignored the past, because it was easier. I tear the ticket in half and throw it into the water. The ripples stop. Behind me, the line dissolves. People fade like reflections at dawn. The board flickers and goes dark. The printer dies with a final whine. The ferry never comes again. I quit a week later. They replaced the board. Removed the route. Officially, nothing happened. Unofficially, I still hear footsteps, sometimes, careful and patient, walking where no dock exists. And every time I pass the water, I keep my distance, because I know some crossings are still waiting for someone brave or stupid enough to sell the last ticket. I was halfway through locking the quarry gate when the siren went off, a single long blast that vibrated through my chest and made my hand jerk off the chain. I stood there with the padlock hanging loose, listening as the sound rolled across the empty pit and back again. There were no trucks, no drills, no men. I knew that because I had personally signed off on the shutdown that afternoon. No work scheduled. No one inside. The siren was not supposed to sound unless there was an active emergency, and emergencies only happened when people were present. My first thought was that someone had ignored the schedule and come in anyway. that someone was about to get killed. I dropped the lock, grabbed my radio, and ran back through the gate, my boots sliding on loose gravel. I shouted into the radio, asking if anyone was on site, if anyone was hurt. All I got back was the dull hiss of an open channel. The siren cut off as suddenly as it had started. The silence afterward felt heavier than the sound. I stood there, breathing hard, waiting for something else to happen. Nothing did. No secondary alarm. No lights. No movement. Just the quarry empty and still, exactly as it should have been. I walked the perimeter first, forcing myself to follow procedure, even though my hands were shaking. I checked the equipment sheds, the control room, the maintenance tunnel. Every door was locked. Every machine was cold. I called the regional office from the landline and reported a false alarm. They told me to log it and go home. I tried to laugh it off when I told my wife about it that night. I said the system was old, that these things happened. She asked why I kept rubbing my chest, right over my sternum, like something still hurt there. I told her it was nothing. The next morning, there was a message waiting on my desk. It was from an older inspector who had retired years earlier, a man named Lennart who still came by sometimes to drink coffee and complain about regulations. The message was brief. He wanted to know if the siren had sounded the previous evening. I stared at the paper for a long time before calling him. When he answered, he did not say hello. He just said my name and waited. "Yes," I said. "How did you know?" There was a pause. I could hear him breathing. "Write down the time it happened," he said. I told him. He went quiet again. Then he told me to check the old incident ledger, the one kept in the archive cabinet that no one used anymore. I asked him what I was looking for. He said, "A death." The ledger was thick and smelled like dust and oil. It went back decades, handwritten entries fading into cramped script. I found the date Lennart mentioned and ran my finger down the page. There was an entry marked "Inactive Accident, Internal Resolution." No siren logged. One fatality, a man crushed by a shifting wall after hours, unreported publicly to avoid scrutiny. The time of death matched the time the siren had sounded the night before. I told myself it was a coincidence. A horrible one, but still just a coincidence. I wanted to believe that. Lennart did not sound convinced. The siren sounded again 2 nights later. This time I was already at home, sitting at the kitchen table with paperwork spread out in front of me. The sound carried even from kilometers away, a low wail that made the glasses in the cabinet hum. My wife froze, pen halfway to her mouth. "That's the quarry," she said. I was already on my feet. I drove back out there faster than I should have, heart pounding harder with every kilometer. The gate was still locked when I arrived. The siren was still going. I unlocked the gate and drove in, scanning the pit with my headlights. Empty. I ran through the same checks as before, more frantic this time. Again, no one. Again, silence returned like nothing had happened. The next morning, I did not wait for Lennart to call. I went straight to the ledger. Another entry. Another unreported fatality. Different year. Same time of day. I started digging deeper. I pulled personnel files, maintenance reports, old inspection notes. A pattern emerged that made my stomach turn. Every time the siren sounded when no work was scheduled, it matched the moment someone had died on site in the past. Deaths that had been buried in paperwork, hidden to protect contracts and reputations. I confronted my supervisor. I told him what I had found. He listened without interrupting, his face tight and pale. When I finished, he told me to stop. He said those records were closed, that reopening them would cause unnecessary trouble. He said the siren system was malfunctioning and would be replaced. He told me to forget about it. I tried. I really did. But once you see a pattern like that, it is impossible to unsee it. I began dreading the nights. Every quiet evening felt like a held breath. The siren sounded again the following week, then again. Each time, I confirmed another death. I started to feel like the quarry itself was keeping count, refusing to stay silent about what had happened within it. Lennart came to see me after the fourth siren. He looked older than I remembered, his shoulders slumped. "We knew," he said quietly. "Back then, we all knew. But we told ourselves it was necessary." I asked him why the siren was sounding now. After all these years, he looked at me with something like guilt. "Because you're here," he said. "And you're listening." The idea lodged in my head and would not leave. That the system was responding not to mechanics, but to attention, to acknowledgement. The fifth siren came on a night when I was already at the quarry, finishing a late inspection. I stood alone in the control room as the sound rose around me, closer than ever, vibrating through the concrete floor. I did not run this time. I did not check the equipment. I went straight to the archive cabinet. The ledger lay open on the desk where I had left it. A new page had been added. The handwriting was neat, precise. It listed my name. My mouth went dry. The entry was dated that night. Cause of death blank. The siren stopped. I understood then what it wanted. It was not warning of accidents. It was marking them, recording what had been denied. And now, because I had uncovered everything else, it was ready to record me. I called my wife and told her to leave town. I did not explain. I told her I loved her. Then I went back out into the pit. I stood at the edge where the walls dropped away, the ground beneath my feet unstable from years of blasting and shifting. I thought about all the men who had stood where I stood, trusting that someone would tell the truth about what happened to them. I did not want to die, but I could not let the ledger be right. I went back inside and started making calls. I contacted regulators, journalists, anyone who would listen. I sent copies of records, photos of the ledger, recordings of the siren. I stayed on the phone until my voice was hoarse and my hands numb. By morning, the story was out. Investigations were announced. The quarry was shut down permanently. The siren never sounded it again. They asked me later how I knew where to look, what made me keep going when everyone else had stopped. I told them the truth. That something had been screaming to be heard, and I was the first one in a long time who had not covered his ears. The ledger sits in an evidence room now. Its last entry crossed out in red ink. My name's still there, but marked void. Sometimes, late at night, I still feel that vibration in my chest, like a memory of sound that never quite fades. But the silence that follows no longer feels heavy. It feels earned.